Welcome to the South African Film Festival, everyone. And as always, with the festival, we like to give you a bit of an insight into the films, not just watching them, but actually getting a sense of what they're all about, who they're all about. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Danielle MacDonald, who's the director of Fat of the Land, or as it was originally named, Vet van die Land. Welcome, Danielle, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I must put it out there and let our audience know that Danielle is actually joining us from Vietnam. She's that dedicated. She's taking time out of that wonderful place and her time there to talk to us about her film. Danielle, Fat of the Land, it tackles succulent poaching. Now, I mean, when we think about poaching, particularly from South Africa or from, Africa in general, we think of animals. We don't really think in terms of plants, really. Um, an issue I think that outside conservation circles, many people don't have any knowledge of at all. So, what is it that first drew you to the story? And when did you realize that it was more than just a niche environmental issue?
Well, firstly, you say that we always think about animals being poached. We think about rhino horn, we think about abalone. And what's interesting is these are actually the same syndicates running, and in price, the succulents are sometimes even more valuable, like per gram, than you would get for abalone or rhino horn or even heroin. So that part really, like, when I heard about that, I thought this was very interesting. And the more I spoke to people, the more I realized nobody knows that the succulents are even being poached. They have
Mm.
succulents in their gardens and they don't know that there's any value or that this is a thing that's going on underneath their noses in South Africa. So I think sort of the combination of this pushed us to, when you see something happening in the world that's not right and you can give it a voice, then that's what we need to do.
Absolutely. And I mean, you encountered the story while you were working on a series about South Africa's UNESCO World Heritage sites. And, not strangely enough, you were in one of those sites and the story sort of manifested. So the story plays out in the Richtersveld. Just how important was it for you to keep that area and that remarkable environment front and center when you were making the film while still telling this amazing story about the plants that are being poached from there?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Richtersveld is such an incredible place, and it really is. It's like Peter says in the film, it is the cradle where these things originated from, where these plants originated from. So for us, it was very important to keep that front and center. I never imagined myself driving to the Richtersveld 3 times in such a short period from Cape Town. But once we got there, the first time we came to the Richtersveld and we heard about this, we thought, okay, this story needs to be told. But you drive in there and it's so, like, it's so dry, it's so barren, and you really think there's nothing here until you meet Peter and he takes you into the veld and suddenly, suddenly it starts coming alive. And after a day or two, the crew started getting excited when they see a certain little kind of item. They would light up and we would, like, the veld came alive for us in the Richtersveld, so we had to keep it. We had to keep it there. I mean, the poaching is a bigger problem. It is also in the succulent Karoo. It is, yeah, it's even spreading to the Eastern Cape now, but also because Pieter is from the Richtersveld and he represents that area in such a beautiful way, we decided to keep it there.
Let's talk about Peter. Peter van Wyk, who's described internationally by some people as the plant herder. And I think that's, plant whisperer is almost more accurate, having seen the film. Such a larger than life character who clearly has such a deep and abiding love of the Richtersveld and everything in it, from the tiniest little Twinkie all the way through to the big plants and everything else as well. So when we look at him as the central figure that is sort of interwoven throughout the doco, how did you balance portraying him as a scientist, self-taught though he might be, and an activist who feels so passionately about protection?
I think we tried to we tried to show almost the whole package. So we wanted to get Peter. We spent a lot of time talking to him, and he speaks a lot. But so it was a bit of a tricky balance in the end because we wanted to get that depth and that, the fact that he's from the area and bring in, this is where he grew up and this has been his great love and his great passion for his whole life. And then how that almost fueled his scientific side because Peter's actually quite a complicated story, and we were not able to put everything into 30 minutes. But just Peter's wired so differently. So, he really, like, he struggled at school, but now he's busy with doctorate degrees with universities. And it was just because he was completely misunderstood because he's got this way that his brain works, that he picks things up. And, what 11-year-old child starts writing an encyclopedia about plants? It's just, it's so we really tried to put everything in the film in a way that you can get a whole picture of the person.
So getting back to our conversation, did making this documentary change the way that you think about conservation? Particularly in light of the fact that it's animals we do tend to think of when we think of poaching. Has this changed your worldview at all?
I think it actually changed me a lot more than I thought it would. Because, I knew there was a story. I knew it, I felt that it was important to tell. And I think my respect for people in conservation, but especially actually in plant conservation, which is such a thankless job. Not all heroes wear capes. And the people who dedicate their lives to conserving plants or, tiny succulents, it is such a tall order and it's such an impossible fight to fight. So for me, I think a big shift was just in the amount of respect that I have for people who dedicate their lives for this and people who volunteer. And, Peter's whole life goes into this, but it's not only Peter, it's the people from the the EWT and the people from Sandy and Sandparks and how they all Cape Nature, how they all come together and they all because they're not really being paid for this. So they're just giving their best to try to take hands and try to do something. And that it shifted my perspective.
As I think it will anybody who watches the film, I was amazed to see these tiny little things that are rescued, no different from rescuing animals that then have to be reintroduced into a habitat. But before that, they go to the nursery and a little drop of water every day, and it's phenomenal stuff. It really is, and I think what you've managed to do is to give a face to the plants, which sounds a bit
That
weird,
was
but
the goal.
we've all seen the warm and fuzzy videos of baby rhinos that are rescued and they're really cute and we can relate to that. It's difficult to relate to a plant in quite the same way,
Yeah,
but
that
you've
is
done it.
why we tried to, because we knew that if we could get people to care about Peter, then maybe we can get them to care about plants. So I guess that's also a bit why Peter is, quite front and center in this film, is if you give it a, if we give the people a hero, then hopefully there's something. Yeah, but it's
Absolutely.
it's true. It's true. If you try to make a film just about the succulents themselves, I think you'll, as we spoke about earlier, like the attention span is not very long these days. You're gonna lose some views.
Yeah, and look, the other thing for me that kind of snaps into focus, and I think this is the same thing that applies to telling a story about any endangered species. On the one hand, you've got the need to highlight the problem, to bring awareness to what is happening. And on the other, you don't then want to have this almost like a publicity a promo for, well, look at these great plants out there and they're free for the picking, you know. So how do you create that balance? How do you ensure that you show what needs to be shown so that people care, but you don't show it in such a way that the ones that haven't yet cottoned onto the fact that this is kind of great business cotton onto it now?
This is actually a conversation we had a few times before we made the film because that was one of our concerns as well, is are we now showing people where to get, the 100 rand little plants or whatever, the $6,000 little plants for that matter. And we approached Sandparks about it, and we approached Sanby about it before we even went into production to ask, will this be a problem? Do you think there's, and they said that the value of getting the public's awareness outweighs the risk of potentially somebody, but because also you can't just really become a plant poacher. I
Mm,
mean, I guess you could, but no, that's not really a conversation we want to have. But it's not just, you can't just go into the veld and pick some succulents and think that they're going to sell and that you can just, ship them overseas. It's not going to work like that. There are these syndicates that are in place that will recruit whether we are making this film or not. But what we wanted to get from making it is hopefully the right people with the right deep pockets see this and put something behind conservation instead. So we hope that making the benefits of making the film outweighed the potential cost, but so far we haven't seen any cost.
mm. And look, it's a challenge. It absolutely is, but it's a story that needs to be told. And I think you're absolutely right. First of all, not too many people could find the Richtersveld on a map, I think. And then once you get there, and it is vast, and you don't know what you're looking for, so the chances of you being able to go in and commit wholesale slaughter is probably quite small. But it is such a beautiful film that I think even South African born people will see that part of the country in a whole new light. I mean, I was born in South Africa. I lived in Australia for 28 years, and I'm living back in South Africa. I've never been there, um, and but I do want to go now. I absolutely want to go. I want to, and I want to meet Peter, because the stories that man can tell, I'm sure, and in the way he could tell them, it would be absolutely fascinating. But congratulations on the film, and congratulations on putting it in a light that appeals to people just from an interest perspective, but also to people who care deeply about nature. And I think the South African Film Festival audience is just that. We have people that really care, and if nothing else, we can all raise awareness. And if we see something in someone's home, we can ask, where did that come from? Did
Exactly.
you
That's
did you buy it
exactly
from a
what we
reputable
want.
nursery? Or how did you get it? You bought it online. Well, then it's us, and maybe we need to look at that a little bit further. And I think that is what you've achieved with this film. So, tell us, in addition to everything we've discussed, why is it that audiences need to make the time to watch Vet van die Land, Fat of the Land?
Whew, I wish I had a prepared answer for this one. I think if you are, but I think you just said it actually. If you're interested in conservation at all, if you're interested in seeing beautiful South African landscapes, and if you're interested in seeing what ordinary South Africans are doing, or what ordinary South Africans can do and can achieve, this is a film to watch because it's it's got a bit of a feel good vibe at the end, but it is a real hard story and it's a real truth. And the more people who watch it and spread the word about it, the bigger our chances are to fight this. So as long as we can get as much exposure and as much consciousness about these black market plants being sold in order to just try to stop it as much as we can, then that is a good enough reason.
And I think that sums it up. Thank you so much, Danielle. We look forward to your next project. Can we get a sneak peek on what's coming up next?
Oh, not at the moment, but hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
Watch this space, folks.
Exactly. Thank you
No,
so
that's
much.
It's been wonderful chatting to you. Thank you for sharing this film. Thank you for bringing Pieter van Wyk to screens, and giving us all a sense of this larger than life character who's out there. And it is good to know that someone like him has a steady hand on the tiller. And heaven help any poacher who happens to cross his path.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they'll
Thank
be in a
you
world
very
of
much.
pain. It's been wonderful chatting to you. Enjoy the rest of your time in Vietnam, and watch your screens, everybody. We launch on the 21st of June. Go to saf.org.au for the full schedule from that date onwards. In fact, we're launching, I think, in about 2 weeks' time. I keep losing the date of when the actual launch of the festival is. But a lot of films in cinema, a lot more films online. So wherever you are in Australia and New Zealand, you'll be able to access this amazing film. So watch the schedule, look out for it, buy your ticket, and also remember that all ticket sales go directly to EWB, which in itself is a cause that is worth supporting because it helps underprivileged kids make the most of their schooling careers. So thank you, Danielle, for joining us. And everybody, get to saf.org.au and get your tickets as quickly as you can. Thanks, Danielle. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you.